Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we are on Herp Monday number 32 and we have a special request from a YouTube comment. Proof that I do read them and I will do a request. Today's Herp is definitely something that a lot of people have probably seen, but they may not know that they have seen it. It's a kind of a cryptic one and a lot of people confuse this for something else. Today's herp that we are going to be talking about is the gopher snake, or more specifically, the Pacific gopher snake. So, Pacific gopher snake, or scientific name Pituophis catenifer. Again, that's Pituophis catenifer. It is part of the family Colubridae. As we've discussed numerous times on this channel, it's the largest family. I believe there's over 450 species or genuses in this. I mean, it's just an incredibly large family of. As I said, this is the Pacific gopher snake. There are 9 subspecies. Pacific gopher snake, coast gopher snake, those are the same ones, but you heard of bull snakes, and there's a whole bunch of other subspecies I was not aware of. Just so you are aware, the scientific name of the subspecies of Pacific gopher snake, what that we were talking about, is Pituophis catenifer. Like I said, there are 9 subspecies. The Pacific gopher snake ranges up and down the west coast, essentially up into Canada, all the way to the southern edge of California. They're primarily found, they're usually adjacent to farms and semi-arid brushy areas. So think like meadows, fields, not really any sort of wooded land, but basically you think like the tall grass or, kind of over dirt or dirt clods, things like that. It is actually a relatively large snake. They range in size from 91 to 213 centimeters, potentially even larger. That's about 3 to 7 feet, although there are some instances where people have said they found them about 8 feet long. And just a little interesting fact, they actually have relatively long hatchlings. There have been hatchlings that have been recorded up to 51 centimeters, which is about 20 inches in length, fresh out of the egg. Does mean that they probably reach their maturity relatively quick, since they are that long at birth. As terms of color, they do have a very large range in colors. You saw in the first picture, we have this one, which is a lot paler but darker brown. This one, which is just more like straw, and then you have this one, which is almost kind of reddish. But generally, you're talking about this kind of yellow to dark brown. They've got these spots, a lot of spots on the side. They do have keeled scales, so that gives them a real rough appearance. And they have these well-defined saddles, which are these sort of blotches on the back, and they're usually in a dark brown, but as we've discussed, they can be different colors. They seem to usually have an eye line. You can see right there, that stripe right there, right behind the eye. This one starting like at the top of the eye. I don't know if that's an actual characteristics. That seems to be a relatively common. They do have a paler belly, as most snakes do. But something that's interesting to note is they actually have a protruding rostral scale. So basically, this single scale right here on the tip of the nose actually protrudes out, kind of gives them a little pig nose appearance. Just a little interesting. Now, they are a diurnal species, meaning that they are more active during the day. They have been known to be active at night as well, especially in the early mornings or the evenings, especially during the warmer months. So during the warmer months, you can find them just a little more active. They don't want to be out in the super heat of the day because they can be, basically be cooked. They are a carnivorous species, meaning that they're going to eat meat. They're primarily eating small mammals, but they will eat other things. One of the things they're most known for eating is, you can imagine it from their common name, is actually pocket gophers. Very, very commonly, they're eating pocket gophers. They do eat other birds, bats. They eat insects, small rodents like mice and rats. So they're one of those that definitely a rodent control animal. As I said, they're not incredibly long-lived. They are known to live about 12 to 15 years in the wild, which isn't that much as far as snakes go. However, the oldest known recorded snake, or the oldest known recorded Pacific gopher snake, was known to live 33 years in captivity. That's an insanely long time. Think about that. That's double what these snakes usually. So there is the potential. Oh man, this is just such a beauty. But this is just definitely a more common. This is kind of what I would expect to see. But talking about captivity, these are available in the pet trade. They're not that uncommon. You can buy one for about $200, and I'm probably gonna I wouldn't say break my rule, but I'm gonna say that this is probably a fantastic pet. I'm gonna say these are a incredible pet. As far as snakes go. Now, you do have to do your research and kind of know what you're doing. You definitely should not own snakes if you have no clue whatsoever. But as far as snakes go, this is probably a relatively common one. And I would definitely not dissuade there. As long as people are doing the research, get proper advice, and have a proper setup, probably have a really nice gopher snake. So now, sort of the odd fact that we are going to end this video on. One of the snakes that this is most commonly confused with, and it happens all the time, is rattlesnakes. People see this pattern right here and they just immediately go rattlesnake. Well, their head's not quite wide enough for rattlesnakes. We can go into that. You know, their head's much more in line. They don't really have a fat head. They have a large head, but they real kind of narrower head. Rattlesnakes have that large fat head. They also don't have rattles, and they also don't have that black and white banding that almost all rattlesnakes. However, you also can't necessarily blame people, because Pacific gopher snakes have a really odd defensive mechanism. Really odd. They puff up their body and curl themselves into a classic strike pose, the pit viper. So they'll curl their body around and basically raise up just like you'd pit viper would, while still puffing up their body, expanding their ribs, and really making themselves seem much thicker than they would be usually. And then another reason why I can't blame people for mistaking these for rattlesnakes if they're not knowledgeable is they will usually shake their tail to mimic rattlesnakes in conjunction with this puffing up in that pose. And think about where these snakes live. When we've discussed this numerous times from other snakes, these things are living in, grass, dead vegetation, dead leaves, gravel, dry areas, dry gravels. I should mention they do live relatively close to ponds and marshes, but on the edges. Not in the water, they're more found like in the drier edges, but these are known to eat frogs as well. So, you think about it, you come upon this snake, it is in this pit viper pose, curled up, reared up like it's going to strike you, and then you hear it just rattling in this grass. I can definitely see why people would be worried that these are a rattlesnake. However, rattlesnakes are much, much thicker body, just so you know. But something that these are very well known for, and why I definitely think that these could be a good pet for people, if they know what they're doing, is that these are a non-venomous snake. So you don't have to worry about getting bit with them. I mean, you could have some infection, things like that. But they are a non-venomous and relatively harmless to humans. And they're actually very well known. So kind of like a interesting fact inside of an interesting fact. They're actually very, very well known for striking with a closed mouth. So you think about it, a snake comes up, opens, and bites with its fangs. These are more known for basically just smashing their heads into animals or people, striking with that closed mouth, and it's just a super hard bump to try and warn off possible predators. So you actually have a much lesser chance of getting bit by these than other snakes, like a coach whip that seems to bite just because they want to bite you. So definitely an interesting fact, definitely something that I would not dissuade people from trying to have as a. But thank you guys so much again. I really appreciate it, and I hope to see you again. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is proof that I do read these comments and that I will do any sort of animal that you do. Please check out the other videos, our other series, Fish Friday, the much more long-running series. But thank you guys so much again. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones.